But let's get started. Last night, we know the destination for the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. They're headed to Atlanta. They're going to play for the national championship. They defeat Penn State by the final of 27-24. An action-packed second half in this one where Notre Dame looks like they've got a real shot here to either, you would say, beat one of the two teams that are left, Texas or Ohio State, or at the very least cover. They're probably going to be an underdog, would be my guess, going into that final game. But a slight underdog yesterday. Notre Dame 1-point favorite all week long. Shifted over to PSU -1 at kickoff, but it didn't make any difference. Marcus Freeman, Riley Leonard, they are moving on to the championship, and they talked about the win that they got in the final minute yesterday.
So proud of this group. What a gritty performance, and they found a way when it matters the most to get their job done. Penn State was a heck of a football team. I had a lot of respect for them coming into the game, but have more after the game. It's a really good team, well coached, and it was a tough matchup, but these guys are resilient, and they found a way to make a play when it matters the most. And that's what, again, is to me, what great teams, great organizations, they're able to, at that moment that they need to do their job or make a play, they do it. And the last play doesn't matter. There's unpredictable things that happen all the time, and they find a way to make it work. And I'm really proud of them, excited for this next opportunity. We'll enjoy this thing today and tomorrow before we figure out who our opponent is, and then we got to get healthy and get back to work for one less guaranteed.
Throughout this whole offseason, everybody would ask me why I came to Notre Dame. And I'll give a lot of different answers, but the truth is I came here to win a national championship and, to go to the best team that would give me the best odds to do that. And, obviously this is the right place and I made the right decision. So, that's why I came here at the end of the day.
If the Irish end up playing the Texas Longhorns, they'll be 3-point underdogs in the look-ahead line. Buckeyes would be 9.5-point favorites over Notre Dame if they defeat Texas tonight. Let's go back to last night real quick. Penn State season comes to an end, a really good one, but an unfortunate finish. James Franklin, head coach of Penn State, talked about the outcome and also the play of his quarterback, Drew Aller.
Yeah, Drew is a passionate guy. He invests so much into his development, but also to his teammates and to Penn State. And he'll handle this like he handles everything else. With a first-class approach and with an investment level that's as good as anybody in the country. His jump as a year one starter to a year two starter was significant. He's got a chance to take another step next year. But he'll handle it the right way. He's hurting right now, right? Should be hurting. We're all hurting. This ain't easy to get in here right after the game and have a conversation after you just poured your guts out on that field and really did it all year long. So, he'll handle it great. He'll be hurting tonight and he'll be hurting tomorrow and he'll hurt a little bit less the next day and so on and so forth. But he's a committed guy that's going to do it the right way, and he said it. It may not feel like it right now, but he'll learn from this and he'll be better for it, and so will we.
And Aller will be back with the Nittany Lions next year. By the way, James Franklin, head coach at Penn State, 1-18 against top 5 opponents in his tenure there with the Nittany Lions. Now, history is being made in the NFL this weekend, not for the right reasons, because of the disaster that's been going on with the fires in Los Angeles and Southern California. The NFL saying they're moving the playoff game between the Vikings and Rams to Glendale, Arizona, Monday night. So that game will not be played in Los Angeles on Monday. It's the second time in NFL history this has happened. The Boston Redskins and Green Bay Packers NFL championship game went from Boston to New York in 1936. None of us, of course, remember that. We will remember this year. Needless to say, the point spread has been adjusted. The Vikings have gone from 1 to 2-point favorites in Monday night's game. By the way, the Rams and Chargers have both been practicing outside despite the fires there. They're saying that the air quality is good enough to play, although a lot of the Chargers players did wear masks. Right now, all the thoughts and prayers on the Rams side are with the people in Southern California.
Obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody that's been affected by, these fires. It's one of those deals that almost doesn't feel real, but it certainly is real to the people that are affected. And, praying, that as many people are okay, and, you just see the amount of people that are affected. And it's one of those deals that, it gives you perspective. And so hopefully get this stuff, under control. And, it's been a unique week. Fortunately for us, there's been some people that have been affected in regards to power outages, recommended evacuation. A couple of our staff members did have their homes affected. But fortunately, to my knowledge, nobody has been injured. And, for that, we're grateful.
I mean, I think we, every time we suit up, we're the Los Angeles Rams. We play for the people in this community, the people that support us. And this week will be, another example of that, obviously. And, it's I'm sure hopefully a great escape for people who've been going through a lot of tough times, here the last couple of days.
Tough to lose a home playoff game, but that's the nature of what's going on right now in California. Jalen Hurts is back at practice, full participant. He's going to play for the Eagles this weekend, make no mistake about it. Zay Flowers will not for the Ravens tomorrow night. He is out with a knee injury, and also the National Football League announced one of their international games upcoming. The Jaguars and Browns will be home teams for the London games. Jets and Browns, by the way, will play at Tottenham Stadium in London in 2025. In case you were looking for an updated point spread in tonight's Cotton Bowl, let me give it to you. OSU, 5.5-point favorites over Texas. Total 52.5. The winner plays Notre Dame next week. Not next week, the week after that for the national championship. They'll play 1 week from Monday night, so good rest for them. All right, let's get to the transfer portal. We've got Carson Beck leaving Georgia. This should be no surprise. He's entering the portal. Some rumors potentially that he could end up in Miami. We will see. Texas gets right tackle Cameron William back for the semifinals against Ohio State tonight. And Boise State is reunited with ex-offensive coordinator Zach Hill. He's going to run the quarterbacks and passing game. He was with the Seattle Seahawks this past season. Over in the NBA, the tragedies going on in Southern California affecting the head coach of the Lakers. Everybody's safe, but J.J. Redick, the head coach, loses his home in the fires that postponed that Hornets-Lakers game as well. Over 1,000 structures in the area were taken out by the fires. The 76ers have ruled out Jared McCain for the rest of the season after knee surgery, which he had on Thursday. In Orlando, Paolo Banchero is set to return tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. He's been out since October the 30th with an oblique injury, averaging 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. He had a career-high 50 points back on October the 28th. And the Thunder are 3.5-point road favorites in one of the big games tonight in the National Basketball Association. The game will be played at Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks. In fact, OKC beat New York, if you may remember, 1 week ago today by a final of 117-107. Welcome back to the Newswire here on Sports Grid. Sam McQuillan's with us from Legal Sports Report. He's actually at the game last night, Orange Bowl, between his Penn State and Nittany Lions and Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Sam, great game last night. Really a classic for the Orange Bowl. I know there's some disappointment there, but naturally a very hard-fought game if you'll take anything away from that.
Thanks a lot, Craig. Yeah, it's going to be one I remember for a long, long time. Great atmosphere, but it's for many reasons I'll remember it as one of the worst losses I've ever felt, but that's nothing new as a Penn State fan.
Yeah, real tough there. 10-3 early on. They had a lead, Penn State did, but then they sort of fell apart there in the end. All right, so February 4th is a target date for an update on sports betting in Alabama. You guys have a column up over at LegalSportsReport.com. What do you think happens when that date comes? Do they push forward, or is this just something that will be attempted and failing yet again?
Yeah, it's a good question. That's kind of been the theme of a lot of these states we still have left on the board, right? But with Alabama ahead of their session, actually, the new leader of the Senate, Garland Gudger, I apologize if I'm butchering your last name, Mr. Gudger, he came out and said that he sees some optimism in the legislature this year for a gambling bill. Alabama is one of those states that doesn't even have a lottery. So really, when you talk about sports betting, it's really hard to just get momentum in general around the idea of further legalizing gambling. But he did say, he thinks there could be appetite for it this year. Obviously, you have a lot of new faces in the legislature. In the past, we've seen kind of these big, comprehensive gambling packages that sometimes include sports betting, sometimes don't, throughout several points in the process, just because, again, of how hard it is to really get any form of gambling legalized in the state. But I would say the fact that the leader of the Senate kind of seems to be leaning on board or indicating that he's at least open to pushing the agenda forward if he has more, if there's more of an appetite in the legislature for it, is definitely a good sign. In the past, I think there's been a lot of dissension among different lawmakers in terms of not just whether we want sports betting legalized or gambling, other forms of gambling, but what we're going to do with the money. I think that's been kind of the big caused a big roadblock there. Is some people want to use it on education, some other lawmakers want to use it to expand Medicaid, different mental health initiatives as well. So but essentially, once they would even get to the point where they pass a gambling bill that would include sports betting, they then would have to bring it to the ballot, and then the people would have to pick if they want it. So it's not as simple as just, are they going to pass a bill? Is it going to become legal? Are we going to get it? There's still a lot of hoops to jump through. But I would say this session, probably has as good a chance as any out of the previous ones in Alabama. And remember, with this stuff, you never really know what's going to happen. Sometimes we're talking about just a little momentum, and then all of a sudden it snowballs into, hey, we have the next big state that just legalized. So I would say there's hope if you're in Alabama, but nothing super material yet on the legislative front.
Yeah, it seems like legislative sessions everywhere in February are going to open up the door for potential. It's just how far it gets going. Now, I know Minnesota is another one of those states, Sam. Pat Evans was on earlier in the week and said we have to keep a close eye out on them. But naturally, first, they're going to hear the positives, and then there's going to be some oppositions coming in the way of Minnesota. Tell us more what that may look like.
Yeah, Minnesota is another one of those states still left on the board, obviously. A state we've talked a lot about in the past, potentially legalizing sports betting. And it's actually gotten pretty close, unlike Alabama. There, it's been sort of tribal efforts that have kind of been a roadblock. But it seems to, as you allude to, Craig, that there are new, maybe even bigger roadblocks popping up. This week, they had one of the first hearings that I've ever heard a state have that hasn't had sports betting, where they focus solely on the negatives of sports betting. Congress, the U.S. Congress had a similar hearing pretty recently, and that kind of seems to be trickling down to the states a little bit. Some of that momentum kind of against the industry, kind of looking at it from that point of view. But at this hearing, you had a bunch of different folks who are not in the industry, a bunch of people who are pretty much against sports betting testifying ahead of their session. One of them, Les Bernal, who's the national director of the Stop Predatory Gambling campaign, it was pretty vocal about what he says is a phony narrative that the legal industry has been pushing. A lot of the times the industry will say legalizing it will help bring it out of the shadows and help combat the illegal industry. While he said that's true, it actually does more harm when you legalize it, then illegal gambling goes up as well. You had another witness who is the lawyer of the famous ex-Jaguars employee who admitted to stealing $22 million from the team to play fantasy sports on FanDuel. He spoke out against the industry. No surprise there. They're suing FanDuel, trying to make them culpable for sort of all the money that he took. He said, the industry is predatory. They send these specific offers and free bets to certain people they want to bet more. So finally, one proponent of sports betting did speak up, though nobody from the legal industry was invited. Pat was reporting that they had kind of been shut out of this whole process. But finally, a senator who wants sports betting, he's an author of one of several bills that could be heard in the legislature when it kicks off. He spoke up and said, listen, the simple fact is, we've heard the testimony against it, but Minnesotans want it. And it's kind of our duty as lawmakers to represent the people and what they want. There is a poll that came out pretty recently that said that overwhelming majority of Minnesotans want it. And that most will not probably fall into the problem gambling category. No, whether that is true or not, you'd have to let it play out. But so while there does seem to be a lot of kind of resistance to it, there still is a big, strong, growing swing of it. And I think this is just going to be one of those things you see now in states, now that we've had sports betting for so long, is that we're going to start hearing about all the negatives too during the legal process.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's to come here in the next few months, because as we know that this has been a very big 50-50 issue in a lot of different states. But the one thing that it seems to be growing are these online casino games all over the country. And I read the column over at Legal Sports Report that you guys wrote, Philadelphia and all of these states in Pennsylvania getting ready to go live online with casino. And by the way, live dealer games I see here too, blackjack and some VIP as well. That's new.
Yeah, it's another segment that continues to grow is iGaming. You see a lot of companies like Caesars, they just launched their new horseshoe branded games, which, as you allude to, Craig, has expanded to live blackjack dealers. It's beyond just kind of, playing these old looking pixelated blackjack games on your phone where you're actually,
Right.
it kind of feels like you're in a casino. And companies like Caesars, they've spent tons of money on building their own studios, building their own casinos. I believe MGM and BetMGM have something similar as well. And DraftKings has been pretty vocal about wanting to do the same thing. But Caesars really, while they've taken a backseat to sports betting, if you pay attention to any of the market share reports, any of the earnings calls, they're really making inroads in iGaming. And you see that here with them bringing it to another big city, this Horseshoe Casino. It's their fifth state that they're in now. It's, Pennsylvania is one of the largest iGaming states. There's only a few. We have New Jersey as well on there. Illinois, we're talking about two, maybe perhaps could legalize iGaming as well this year. But I think it'll be really interesting to see what sports books do if they try to copy Caesars and do more of this live dealer stuff. They've been very innovative, obviously, with parlays and sports betting. But maybe what can they do on the iGaming side to push that a little bit more, get people to play it a little bit more, and then at the end of the day, get people to play their apps over other people's apps. I think it's going to be definitely something interesting to watch here, and Caesars leading the way with their Horseshoe Casino.
Yeah, and a lot of the other states and companies trying to emulate, do a lot of this, live iGaming as well. We'll follow it throughout the year. Sam, safe travels back up to New York from Florida, and we'll catch up again next week here on Newswire. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Craig. Have a good one.